In this tutorial, we will see how to connect two instances of niliBOX so that we can access the devices installed on one of them from the other one. For this video, I have set up two devices running niliBOX. The first one is on this computer where I have a standard installation of niliBOX where I have configured already an RTL dongle. You can see it running here. And also I have configured a driver test. The second instance is an Android tablet that you can see here where I have also installed niliBOX. This Android tablet is connected to the same local network than the other one. So this device here and this device here, they are running on the same local area network. We will call this instance running on Windows local. And this second one, which is running on Android, we will call it remote. The local one could be one computer in your technical room connected to your devices, and the remote one could be running from your living room, for instance, or somewhere else at home. In the Android instance, we can see that there is nothing configured. There are no devices connected and or configured. But if we open the devices section, we can see here the same devices that we can see here. What we are doing is showing the devices installed on the local instance to the remote. This is automatic. You don't need to do anything. You can see that if I close this instance, after a few seconds, the devices will disappear in this one. You can see that there is nothing available. If I open it again, then the devices available in the local instance will automatically appear in the remote instance. We can now simply open remotely these devices like this. And we can use them. You can notice that when this device is opened remotely, it appears as disabled in the local instance. It is because this kind of module, radio receiver, can only be used from one device at a time. If now I open the other one, the driver test, this one doesn't have any hardware connected, so we can open it from both instances at the same time. You can see that the hardware that appears here is the hardware that is connected to the local device. So this module here is running here on the local one. I will close it now. The only thing that you need to take in consideration for this to happen is that both instances of niliBOX need to be able to communicate. niliBOX communicates through a specific port 18081, both on UDP and TCP. UDP is used for the discovery of the network to identify what other instances are available in the network, and TCP is used for the actual communication between them. This is important, especially on Linux, where you may have a firewall running that may avoid this communication to happen. When we run remotely one module, the configuration of that module belongs to each instance. Let me explain this. If I open the receiver here and I change the frequency, I move to this 105.9, and now I close it, and now I open it here. You can see that the configuration is the last one that we saved in this instance, in the remote instance. We are using the same device, but with our own configuration on each instance of niliBOX. Now, what to do if you want to avoid this behavior? I mean, what if you don't want your devices or some of your devices on the local instance to be available in the remote instance? Let's see how this works. This is done in the settings section in the configuration of the devices. Let's, for instance, avoid that the RTL dongle We don't want it to be available in this remote instance. Then we simply go to the mode, which by default is near, and we put it in local. Local means that this device is only available for the local instance, for this one. Near means that it is accessible from any computer, from any niliBOX instance on the same local network. So I will put it now in local, and when I save the configuration, you will see that it disappears from here. If I set it back to near and save, it will appear again. In this way, we can select what devices want to be available for other instances in the same local network. You have seen that there are more options here. Apart from local and near that I have already explained, we have remote and public. We will cover these two a bit later in this video. Something else that we can do remotely is to configure another instance of niliBOX. Let me show you this. This site here, the one that we are calling local, is called JC Windows 11. And this one here, the remote one, is called JC Android 64. We are going to configure from the remote instance the local instance. Now we have two modules created. From this one here, remotely, we will create a new one. To do that, you need to change here in this list what instance of niliBOX in the local area network you want to configure. Notice that if I change to JC Windows 11, then the name has changed here. Now we are configuring this instance here. If I go to devices and I create a new one, for instance, I create a webcam device, I can see the cameras that are connected. These cameras are not connected to the Android device. They are connected to the Windows device. Here, I will just type a name. I will call it simply webcam. And I will save. And you can see that immediately the new device appears. It can be used. I will try to open it to see where is the webcam looking at. Okay, this is my messy desk. So from the remote Android, we have created and we have configured an instance. We have configured a module in the local instance. Now again, what happens if you don't want this to happen? Let's move again to the Android, and let's go to the settings section inside, and you will notice this field here, remote setup. If it is near, it means that this local instance can be configured from any other one in the local area network, like this one here. You see that it is at near, and both of them are available here. If I change from near to local and I save, after a couple of seconds, we see that the local instance is not available to be configured from the remote one. If I now put it back to near and save, also after a few seconds, we will see that it is available there and we can configure it. And this is all what we need to know about remote operation in the same local network. You can see that right now I can access remotely the SDR receiver, or I can still run locally the webcam. And just notice something. We are now using the receiver, the RTL receiver, remotely from the remote station. If I close the local, of course, it will stop. It will stop working, and after a few seconds, it will show a message saying that the server side is no longer available. And all the devices have disappeared as normal. Now I open it again and the devices appear here again. I can use the webcam remotely. Here it is. A mirror. You can see the same Android device that I'm mirroring here on my computer, which is right now here on my desk. Okay, so this is everything about remote operation in the same local area network. Now we will go to how to configure niliBOX to be accessible from internet. So from another local area network somewhere else, the two of them connected to internet. I will now connect my Android device to a different network. I will use my hotspot running on my mobile phone, and I will use it to connect directly to internet through 5G. So I will open settings, go to network. It is now connected to my local Wi-Fi network. And now I will select my hotspot. So now this Android is connected directly to internet. If I open niliBOX, even if in the local instance we have several devices available, they are not available here. They cannot communicate one to each other. The way to access devices that are published remotely is by clicking on this icon here to access the global devices. Here you can see a list of all the devices published in internet by remote instances. In this case, we cannot see any. This is because we haven't made our local devices available in internet. To do that, you need to go to settings again, to the devices, and imagine that we want to publish this module here, the RTL dongle. We want this one to be available to anyone running niliBOX anywhere. We go to mode, and instead of local or near, as we have seen before, we put it in public. And at the moment that I save, after a few seconds, it will appear in the list of global devices. You can see it here. Remember that this Android is connected directly to internet. It is not in the same network than this one. Now, if we click on it, it will take some time to find this device here, but it will open. Now I can use it as usual, and you can see that it runs in the same way. Please take in account that they are communicating through internet. This Android here could be anywhere in the world and it will work in the same way. I will close it now. But you have seen that it took some time to open, and this is because the local instance is not published in internet. It is not directly accessible from internet. This can be improved publishing our niliBOX local instance to the internet. There are two ways to do this. You can use UPnP, which will establish an automatic port forwarding in your internet router, or you can use an external NAT. That means to create your own port forwarding. I will not show here how to do that because it depends very much on each internet router. But in general, you need to go to the configuration of your router, choose any port that you wish, for instance 10,000, and establish a port forwarding from the external port 10,000 to the internal port 18,081 in the IP address where you are running your local instance. In this case, if you have chosen 10,000, to give an example, you need to press external NAT and type here the port that you have chosen, so that niliBOX can publish and can inform the other ones where it is working. I will use, in my case, UPnP, which is the same as creating an external NAT. I will save the configuration, and now we should be able to access more directly from the remote instance this local one, because now it is available in internet and it will be easier for the remote one to find where is running the local instance. Let's try it now. You can see that it has opened much faster. As additional information, I can say that niliBOX will try to find and try to connect from the remote instance to the local one. There are 7 different ways that it will try. The more isolated is the local instance, the server, let's say, where you have published your devices, the more time it will take for the remote site to find and be able to connect to the local one. And I will close it now here, and I will explain something else. We have seen that setting up UPnP or a port forwarding on the server side, so on the instance that is serving, that is publishing the devices, will facilitate the communication. If you cannot do that, and you are at the client side and you also want to facilitate that communication, you can also establish UPnP or external NAT at the client side. So in this one, I cannot do it now because there is no internet router. This one is connected directly to internet. But if you imagine that it is in another local area network, remote, if you set UPnP here and you remove it from here, this UPnP at the client side, so at the remote side, will facilitate the communication with the local one. This is what I called a callback connection. So the remote instance will ask the local instance to call back this remote instance and establish the communication. I will put it back as it was before with UPnP, and now we will cover the last mode of publishing applications. Imagine that you have your local devices and you want to make them available but not public. So you don't want them to appear in this list here. What you can do is go again to the settings, to the device that you want to publish, and then change from public to remote. Remote means that it is accessible, but it is not visible. I will save now, and we will see that after a few seconds, this device will disappear from the global devices. It is no longer there. How can we access it now? You need to know what is the site ID of the site of the instance where you want to connect. This is thought for the owner of the local instance to inform someone else where is located, how to communicate with your local device. So I will go now to site. You need to check what is your site ID and give this site ID to the owner of the remote one. Then you come to this area here, which is the favorites. Remember that we talked about this in the initial video about first steps, and you add a new favorite. Here you can paste the site ID that I took from here. This could be sent by email or some other way. When I press OK, you will see that it will show here all the devices available on this local instance. Let's make another test. I will remove this one again. So we have no favorites. Now I will go to the devices here, and I will also make remotely accessible the driver test. So now we have two, but as before, none of them is visible as global devices because they are remote, they are not public. But if I come here and I type the site ID of this one, it will set up as favorites all the devices that are set as remote and also public in the site ID that we have typed. And now we can access. Or the receiver They are both accessible in the same way as before. But now these devices are not publicly visible. They are not here, but we have access because someone told us the site ID of the local instance. If you only want to have one of the devices that are remote, established remote in the local instance here, if you want one of them, okay, you have two options. You can type the site ID here and then remove the ones that are not of your interest, like this. Or you can also, let me remove both of them. You can also type here not only the ID of the site, but the ID of the device that you want to add as favorite. The site ID of the device is accessible here. It is all this number, which is composed by the site ID, ampersand, and the device ID. I will now copy. I will come here, delete, paste the entire code, and when I press accept, only this device will be added. If now I change my mind and I want to see all of them, I just type the site ID and the two are now added as before. This virtual keyboard is being a bit annoying, I know, but okay, we will survive. And now the last topic, we will talk about permissions. Let me remove this, close, and in here I will put them back to public, the two of them, the RTL and the driver test, and I save. They should now be visible again in the global devices list. They are the two of them. There is another way to show only certain devices. If I go to the configuration of one of the devices, you can see that when public or remote is set, this button here is activated. You see that with local and near it is disabled, but with remote or public it is active. Here you can set who you want to be able to see this site and this device. Right now it is set at all because we don't have any security group created. The groups are created here under security. Let's make an example. Let's create a group called myself, where I will put the site IDs of the niliBOX instances that I want to be part of that group. Right now I will put nothing, a random number. If I go to devices and here in allowed, I add myself and I remove all and save. Now in the remote instance, this device RTL has disappeared because I am not in the group myself. If now I go to security again and instead of this random ID I put the site ID of this instance of the remote instance, and I need to check it here, site, I copy this and now I paste it here and add it. Now let's see what happens in the remote instance. As soon as I save, now this site is part of the group myself. Myself is allowed in this device and then it is shown. The other one always appears because if I go to driver test, it is still allowing all to access. If I now change to myself, of course it will also be available because this site belongs to myself. if I now go to security and remove this site like this and save, now there are no members in the group myself, so I will not be able to access these devices. They have disappeared now. And I think that this is all what I wanted to show about remote operation. I will clean up a little bit here, no groups, and here I will put all as allowed on both devices. And when I save, we can see that they both appear again in the list of global devices. The permissions work in the same way for remote. So if you set it as remote and in allowed you add a group, then only the remote sites that belong to that group will be able to add that site or that device here in the favorites. Okay, I think that I will leave it here. I think that this is the most tricky or complex or long video, but I think that this is one of the most useful functionalities in niliBOX. I hope that you will enjoy it.